Alright everybody, welcome to Beginning Modeling and Animation. My name is Michael Brown. I'll be your professor for this semester. Let's take a look at 3D Studio Max. So this is 3D Studio Max. As you can see, it's a fairly large program. You can go download it for free at students.autodesk.com. You'll have to make a student account. Once you make a student account, you should have to verify that you go to Doña Community College, but I've found that it works better if you actually type New Mexico State University and then choose the Doña campus, New Mexico State University Doña campus, as it's a verified institution, and that usually works a little bit better. Alright, so let's take a look at 3D Studio Max. Once you've got your license, you've got it all installed, you can actually start using it. Now if you would prefer to use a different 3D application for modeling and animation, you are more than welcome to. You just need to finish the assignments, at least the content of what I'm asking for. You can make those in Blender or Maya. But knowing more than one 3D application is never a bad idea. So here we go with 3D Studio Max. 3D Studio Max separates everything into 4 viewports. You have your 3 orthographic views, your top, front, and your left, as well as your perspective view. So your perspective view is your 3-dimensional view. Down on the bottom we have our timeline, so that's what we can use to scrub when we're doing our animations and all of that stuff. And over here on the left side is going to show everything that you have put inside of your scene. Now, once you start putting things down, you're going to see more options show up here at the top, and we'll be going over that pretty quickly. And then of course you have your standard file, edit, tools, blah blah blah. All of those menus up there that we'll be using fairly often throughout this class. So let's take a look at the actual interface and how you move around. So if you actually want to move around in your viewports, Alt and middle mouse, sorry my mouse button was sticking, Alt and middle mouse allows you to actually rotate your 3-dimensional views. If you just click middle mouse, you're able to pan your view, and that works in your orthographics as well as your 3D perspective view. So let's actually look at putting something down. So if we want to put down an object, so the first thing I'm going to put down, of course, is a box. So I'm going to click on box, and it's going to give me some options here. We have length, width, and height, length segments, width segments, and height segments. And we'll be going through what those segments are and what they mean pretty quickly here, but let's just get used to putting things down first. So if I want to put something down, I'm going to click and drag, and you can actually see it drags out the base of that box. Then once I let go of the left mouse button, it allows me to draw the height of that box. And that actually puts down a box for me. Now, you may have a hard time seeing the box because not all of the edges are highlighted. So over here we have our perspective, standard, default shading. If we click on default shading, we can actually choose edged faces, and that's going to give you a nice line on every edge, which makes it a little bit easier to see. Now, you may want your perspective view to be bigger because you're going to be working in that view primarily, and you only really need these to line stuff up. So what we can do is we can hit Alt plus W while hovering over the window we want to make bigger. So whatever window I'm over will get bigger every time I hit Alt W. It'll fill up my entire screen. So I've filled up, I'm using my perspective mode as my full screen. So if I hold Alt middle mouse, you can see that I can actually rotate around the box. And then of course I can zoom in and out with my wheel, the mouse wheel. And I can pan by just clicking and holding the middle mouse button. Now getting used to controls in Max is probably the hardest thing, because Max, Blender, and Maya all use different controls. But for the most part, once you pick it up, it's pretty simple. So let's actually look at moving an object in 3 dimensions. So we've got the box down, and we're going to go over our shortcut keys, which are Q, W, E, and R. Q is your select tool, so if I hit the Q key, that'll allow me to just select stuff in the environment. You can see that I'm now clicking, and I can select the box, deselect the box. Now if I hit the W key, that brings up my move tool. Okay, so W stands for move. It should be M, I understand, but all the shortcut keys are right next to each other this way. So we have W for move, and it gives me this little widget, which has red, green, and blue arrows. So the red arrow is the x-axis, the green arrow is y, and the blue arrow is z. So you can see that if I click and drag on one of those arrows, I actually move the box in that direction. And of course, with the blue one, goes up and down. Now you may decide that you just want to move the box kind of on two axes at once, and they have these really handy little areas here. So if you click in between two of the arrows, I can now move it on X and Y at the same time, Y and Z at the same time, or X and Z at the same time. What you want to avoid trying to do is just clicking it and trying to move it, because your mouse is a two-dimensional input tool, not three-dimensional, so it works much better if you actually click and drag off the arrows. If you see now I'm trying to move it in 3 dimensions by just clicking the middle of the box, and I don't really have a lot of control over what I'm doing with it. So it's easier to just select those little widgets in between so you can move it how you want to. Now if I hit the E key, E stands for rotate. And again, we have the same sort of situation set up here where we have our red, green, and blue lines, and those represent the axes that we're rotating on. So I can rotate on green, red, and blue. And I can also hit Control Z to kind of undo anything that I've done. So that's a pretty standard shortcut key, pretty easy to pick up. And R is our scale tool. So we can scale things by hitting the R key. If you want to scale everything at once, you click in the middle and it highlights, you can see it highlights all 3 axes. And now I'm scaling the entire object up or down. But if I just want to scale it on Z, I can go ahead and just grab Z and scale it, or Y, or X, etc. Or I can grab 2 of those and scale it. Same idea. Now one thing I want you to look at is up here we have our different move and select tools. So right now I'm on my scale tool, so you can see it's highlighted, and it's called Select and Uniform Scale. But if I hit R again, you can see it changes to Select and Squash, and if I hit R again, it's Select and Uniform Scale. But it doesn't give us the 2 options. So every time I hit R, it changes what it does. So if you're having a weird issue with the scale tool, so if you notice it's doing this now, all you need to do is come up here and check this, and you can click and hold, and you can just go back to the first one, and that will go ahead and make it back to what you're used to it doing, to what affects the entire object. The same thing applies to the select tool. If I click and hold on the select tool, you can see all my different select methods. So by default it's square, but every time you hit the Q key, you can see it switches. So you have to be careful with that. That can actually get confusing, like you can hit it accidentally and now everything you're selecting is a circle. So you have to be aware of what you're doing, or you click it and now you're selecting everything in a polygon. You can click and hold and just reset that. So that's your basic movement and basic scaling and rotation stuff. So what I want you to do for your first very easy assignment is to just simply drag things and put them in the scene and get used to placing objects and get used to moving around and get used to rotating your environment and just putting things down. And once you've put things down, you're just going to save this max file. So I'll do a save as, and I'm going to save it to my desktop for right now. And I'll just call it intro. So put your name on it, call it intro, like so your name _ intro, and then just hit save. And that's all you're going to turn in is your max file for this first assignment. And again, that's all I want. I just want you to put stuff down on max so that I can see that you're getting used to the tools, you're getting used to putting the objects down, and all of that stuff. And that's it. That's going to be it for the first project. And then the next stuff we're going to do is actually box modeling.